Hi, and welcome to another episode of Nursing Your Way to Wealth, where a mental health nurse and an accountant talk about wealth creation, personal development, and financial independence in the UK to help you live the life you deserve.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to Nursing Your Way to Wealth. So you're here again with Alex and Alex. It's the other Alex doing the introduction this time. So please give us an email and tell me how I do. But today we're going to talk about probably something that is so prevalent in all of our lives now, but certainly have increased in use over the past kind of 10, 15 years, and that is social media. And in particular, it's being conscious and aware of what you see on screen isn't necessarily 100% the truth. And what I mean by that is, I guess there's a couple of points really that we'll talk about in the episode. One is looking at, the kind of the lifestyle that you sometimes see from big influencers and peel back on how often that sometimes isn't really the true case. And not trying to compare yourself to people that you see on screen, also looking at, recognizing that socials are often a highlight reel of real life of somebody's life, and actually, things are happening underneath that and outside of social media. So like, it's just trying to be really conscious and aware not to be comparing yourself, like use social media for a purpose of like keeping up with people, but I think there can be some unhealthy habits generated where you become quite obsessive with looking at and trying to copy lifestyles and aspire to certain lifestyles that actually might not be the case. And I guess also we must spend hours and hours of time every week on social media. And yes, it's powerful, but I think, over a lifetime, you're probably spending weeks, if not months of your life mindlessly scrolling on things. So there's a huge amount of time that could be used for other things. And, I don't have stats in front of me, but I think certainly overuse of social media can really be a detriment to one's mental health and well-being. So, bit of a all-round episode on social media, but I think the underlying point on all of it is going to be around making sure you're being intentional, you're following kind of financial independence, you have a goal, and it's about minimizing the distractions and not kind of losing the course along the way by focusing too much on social media. Alex, that was the first introduction of mine. Keen to hear your thoughts and also your thoughts on the topic for today.
Firstly, I like it. I think it was very good, concise, clear. Sometimes I fumble some of the intros I do. I've been known to re-record them a few times to make sure to try and get them as good as I can do. So I think, firstly, yeah, well done for doing it. I'm quite proud of you. I think the advent of social media, it's been around since nearly 20 years or just over 20 years. Kind of 2004 was this huge rise in people being able to post things, content that's just not fact checked. You don't know if it's true. And then with the advent of things like filters, easy access to high value items as well, it makes an illusion quite easy to create and portray as your real life. So I don't know, Alex, we spoke before we hit record about comparison being the thief of joy. And really, if you are on this financial independence or this fire path, which I'm going to bet that you are if you're listening to Alex's talk about money and life, it really compare yourself with you last month, last year, 5 years ago, not with the hype around other people and what they portray as their own lives, because some of it will be true and accurate. I very much doubt everything's like glitzy and glamorous is actually accurate. It's done to portray an image, perhaps to sell a product. I did a little bit of Googling, Alex, while you were talking. The average person in the West spends 2 hours, 23 minutes on social media. That's just some stats from 2023. I'd like to think mine are, the time spent is probably less than that, but I've recently been tracking my phone use throughout the day. I average about 4 hours per day. That's not purely social media, of course. A lot of it's Google Maps because I'm horrendous at directions and getting to work. But it's a lot more time than I am anticipated, and I think it's by design. People want you, or the creators of these phones and pieces of software, they want to keep you connected to it because more eyeballs sell more adverts, which makes them more money. So it's something that I've been recently aware of, and I'm going to start to track, and I'll probably do an update every couple of episodes on how that goes. Does that answer your question? Is there any other thoughts you've had?
Yeah, it's interesting about the time usage. I'm not too far off that either myself, and yeah, obviously I don't use social media too often. But yeah, I think it's a really pertinent point of, these things are designed that your eyeballs are glued to them because they ultimately make the company's money. And I think the point of that you made around comparing yourself to yourself is really pertinent because you never know the full story of whoever you're comparing yourself to. And I think it's only natural to compare yourself. You are compared from being a child all the way through, even in working life, you are compared against your peers at work to determine progress. There is an inherent level of, I guess, competition and comparison within life. But ultimately, you're on your journey and you've got goals, and it's important that you just stick to your plan and almost just have your blinkers on. It's super difficult, but I think that was really, I think that's really key because it is very easy to get distracted. And I think, yeah, just to the point of, what you sometimes see online of these like, fairly young people like on the runways of like getting into their private jet or being in really fancy hotel rooms with amazing views or in a sports car. But I was chatting to one of my good friends who's reliable source of information, and he's saying you can actually now buy like you go to Dubai and you buy a package, like almost an influencer package where you get a few hours in a hotel room, you get, an hour in a sports car, you can rent some of the jewelry, and you essentially just spend the day taking as many pictures. People take suitcases and suitcases full of clothes to change in and out of, so it looks as if they would live in that certain area. So it's not just like the same set of clothes all the time. So these things really exist and they happen, and it's big business. And I just would say, and especially as you, I guess, progress through your journey to financial independence, you start to get a bit more, you start to build wealth. Advertisements and influencers are very influential, and it's quite tempting to think, oh, actually, I might treat myself to a nice watch or a nice jacket or a nice car when you have the means to do so. But I think it's being very conscious of not like falling into that, I won't say a trap, but falling into that, that trap of believing what you're seeing and thinking that having that will make me happy, because ultimately there's nothing you can buy that will make you happy in the long run, I believe. But yeah, I was just quite astonished when I learned about these like influencer packages that you can buy. And yeah, I think you just have to be really almost blinkered in your view and just be very disciplined with yourself looking at socials and just try and see it for what it is. And look, there's definitely some people on there who are stupendously wealthy, like your genuine celebrities, but where you kind of have other people on there, like potentially, if they're not famous for being a sports star or pop star or whatever, then more than likely you are the person making that influencer money because it's your eyeballs, it's their ads revenue that they're getting. So I think, social media has a purpose and it connects people, but I think be very aware that people use this for their business, and it's, not everything you see is legitimate and believable. That's the cynic in me coming out on my soapbox.
I think I would agree. I think a lot of it is now sales pitches for things. I mean, I wonder, Alex, if you've read the book by Stanley and Danko, The Millionaire Next Door. They talk about big hat, but with no cattle. So you have the illusion of looking wealthy, but you don't have any There's no kind of substance to that. You can't back it up. And I wonder whether I think, well, people must fall for these sales pitches of what people have. You see it a lot in like currency or forex trading. They have this fancy car outside of a fancy house. You rarely see the inside of the house, and what they sell you is a course or perhaps a dream of, if you buy this, then eventually your life will look similar to this. And they sell emotions based on what people think their idyllic life will look like. And it may be that you have lots of money, or these people have lots of money, but they still have problems in life. Money doesn't make problems go away. It can certainly help, but the problems do still exist, and a lot of them, they exist in a slightly different form. I think, Alex, you're right in terms of competition in life. I was thinking while you were talking about just exam results, through school, university, etc., and even up to interviewing for jobs. I mean, you're essentially competing against anyone else who's interviewed, and competition is just a fact of life. We have people competing for resources, and we have companies competing for eyeballs, for money, for ad revenue, for sales of products, for repeat custom, for anything like that. And I think it's a useful thing in a capitalist society, but it's also can be dangerous if you give it too much of your time and too much of your attention. So if you find that this is happening, focus on who you are, where you're going, and where you were last year, and hopefully you'll have made some progress towards whatever targets you've set yourself. And the thing about having a better standard, a better quality of life, is how quickly you get used to that. And I know we've discussed this before. It's back to the hedonic treadmill, and you become accustomed to the life that you've been leading, and you don't imagine yourself downgrading life. It's always upgrade this, upgrade that, to feel kind of the next dopamine hit. So I think it's something that you need to be acutely aware of, because I've fallen into this trap myself. And I know, Alex, we've spoken about the Diderot effect of having one obscenely nice thing in an area that's not so kind of nice. You end up thinking, well, because I have this lovely thing, now I need to upgrade something else. And if you think about that in terms of houses and cars, it can really end up costing you an awful lot of money, and you could very quickly end up as one of the big hat no cattle folk.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I remember I did read the book The Millionaire Next Door. I thought it was fascinating how it's almost how quiet money is, in a way that you can't really tell that. I think on average, there's like a person in their mid-50s worth a few $1 million, driving a car which isn't so ostentatious, living in a kind of fairly like nice but not crazy neighborhood. And it was just really, I think it just comes down to as well that expectation of when you do have wealth and money, actually what you expect those people to be spending their money on and looking like is very different to what scientifically actually it is like. And so anybody that hasn't read that book, I'd strongly recommend it. It's also available on an audiobook. They did a rerun of the book, I think I think it was 20 years after the original one was published. And I listened to that quite recently, and the same kind of traits still hold true. And I think that in itself, and that expectation of society of when you actually, you make it and you become well off, you are, flying first class or private, staying in 5-star hotels, driving Lamborghinis, and it's like there's always that element of truth. Like, yes, some people live like that, but the vast majority do not. And yeah, I just think that book was definitely worth the read. And it's reading something like that is actually really good grounding in, I'm sure our listeners are very fact driven, very rational and logical, and almost having that basis of, oh, okay, so statistically this is actually what the average millionaire looks like. Well, I think it just helps provide a bit of a counterbalance to sometimes what you see online. But yeah, I couldn't recommend that book enough. And yeah, it's so true as well about the whole comparing upwards and upgrading. Like, and it's, I think, probably something we're conditioned that, and maybe it's just the nature of a competitive society that we live in. There's always the new model. There's always the latest version to upgrade to, and you don't even on an aeroplane now. I think there's about 4 or 5 different classes of seat that you can get, and I think there's always seems to be another thing to be chasing and to be having. And yeah, as we mentioned, about that, the hedonic treadmill, you're not going to, you're never going to satisfy that because there's always going to be something else. And I think that's why it's really important to like go right back to the beginning of, what makes you happy and what is the life you want that makes you really happy, and keeping that in your mind's eye. And all of these are ways to, I guess, not fall into the social media trap. And I think it's not just about lifestyle on social media. I would say if you look on LinkedIn, like certainly from a career standpoint, you see people's career progression and, like articles they might be publishing, or events they're attending, or people they're connecting with. So it's that thing of, everybody's got their own timeline and you have yours, and it's about sticking to, here's where I am. My goal is this in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, and measuring yourself against that and becoming quite blinkered and focused on that. I think that is a way that you can keep yourself sane. It, I think, doesn't discourage you from going ahead and achieving your goals, but it's that, define what you want and put in the kind of the plan to get there, and try and limit the distraction from elsewhere.
Yeah, I think I agree in all points. I think the book, the follow-up by Thomas Stanley and William Danko is just called Stop Acting Rich from 2011, whereas their original book, I think, came out in the mid-90s, 95 or 96, something like that. And I wonder whether there's a thing here about the capitalist society of annual growth every year for every company, and all the big companies are comparing their growth now to what happened last year, and everyone wants all the figures to point up, and that basically entails humans having to consume continuously. So companies do create things that need upgrades. I mean, look at Apple's growth since they launched the iPhone. It's been stratospheric, and there's no coincidence. There's a new model every year, every 2 years or something like that. When actually you don't need the latest model of phone, but it's that they design it in the way that tells you that their old phone sucks now, and you definitely must have the new one. They entice you with a low monthly figure, but they don't actually tell you how much it's going to cost you over the long term. There's only one winner in that kind of equation. It's Apple. It's not us. So there's something there as well about recognizing when you have enough in life, and that's enough money, it's enough time, it's enough of anything to live a happy life, and to be able to take a step back, metaphorically, physically, mentally almost, and think, actually, I don't need to keep chasing the never-ending rat race, this never-ending cycle of consumerism. And there's points here in minimalism. There's more points in being content with the amount of things you have, what you've reached in life, because it can give you something that you can't buy. And we've always said that time is your most precious asset, and I feel like that's what most of the people on this financial independence journey actually desire, is the time, the free time, to not have to do something that you don't want to do, to be able to earn money to pay your lifestyle. And when you look at it from that lens, instead of, oh, I need this and I need that to elevate my status in life, and there's another huge thing here about status games and anxieties that companies create in people if they don't have a certain thing, and the emotions that they will curate inside us. If we just buy this next thing, then we'll feel however they want us to feel. And I wonder whether I think, Alex, it's certainly something that I think quite a lot about in times where I'm not thinking about something else, if I'm not at work. And I can see it in my own friendship circle. People upgrade to this. They buy a bigger house. They buy a fancier car. They end up leasing cars and have a new one every couple of years. And if they're no longer able to do that, they feel like they've failed somewhere in life. And actually, it creates a perpetual cycle of you must work to earn this, and if you spend more, you need to earn more. So it increases I think, your general stress levels as well. And I think at some point I'd like to do an episode on stress, how it affects the mind, the body, and really your soul in life. So is there anything else, Alex, you wanted to add on those points or not?
No, I mean, I think I'd agree with what you're saying, and yeah, similar to you and seeing friends upgrading, upgrading cars, upgrading houses, like especially on the house front, quite a few of you've got a few friends who have kind of gone out of their first house, they've done work to it. There's some really nice houses and houses which are perfect and will last a lifetime, but no, I think we could definitely do with an extra bedroom now, or ideally we'd have a separate room for, potentially some more children there. Was it just starts to, balloon and balloon and like where do you stop? And I think that the whole point of be aware in yourself of what is your enough is really critical. But yeah, I think that's and I think it'd be really interesting to do an episode on stress, because I think stress is, I mean, it's everywhere, and I think certainly life is becoming more stressful for everyone. I just think given the sheer volume of kind of digital clutter that we're getting, as well as just life being, life was busy enough without being on all the time and stressful enough. If you go back 50 years compared to now, we have all that stress from before, plus all this other stuff. So I think that'd be a really interesting episode.
Well, we've said it now, so I guess we'll do it. I don't know a huge amount about stress, but I'll do some research, speak to some people, probably do a lot of reading about it, and we'll certainly bring you something on it. I think as well, Alex, when we're speaking about competition and enough, and a bit about minimalism, there's the one book springs to mind, which is Essentialism by Greg McKeown. The key line in that one is less but better, and it's a really fantastic book, and I have a copy of it that I'm happy to post to any of our listeners. I think I mentioned it in episode 4 or 5 about our top 5 books. I still have it. No one's emailed me for that one yet. So if you are listening and you want a copy of that, do email me or us, and I'll post it out to you. In terms of, and is there anything else you want to mention about kind of social media, how people can protect themselves from it, just to be a little bit more aware of those things, or do you think we've covered it well enough?
Yeah, I think we've covered it well. I think it's just about being intentional and being very aware of your usage. And if you need to put a time blocker on your apps, or delete them if to take a break from them if you feel like you're getting overwhelmed. But no, I think in terms of, I think we've hammered home the message for this one.
Lovely. And I just had an extra thought. I don't know why I didn't think of it earlier. That a friend of mine has a pin code on some of the apps that he finds sinks loads of his time. So that's Will, if you're listening. And his wife is the only person who knows this pin number. So it then gives him this ability to put a bit of a barrier in place, so he can't then drain a load of time going down these rabbit holes. And he says it's worked really well for him. And I'm hoping it doesn't need to come to things like that, but it's just a useful workaround, so you can be aware of these things and then do something to try and combat it, because everything in the psychology of endless timelines means that humans are susceptible to it, and we'll just spend our time scrolling and not actually do anything productive. So yeah, I think it could be a useful thing for someone. Apart from that, just an update on life. I'm currently recording this from a little hotel in the North Pennines, in not really mountainous, but it's quite rural. We're kind of 40 minutes from anywhere that I would consider to be civilized, and there are countless sheep, loads of farms, and loads of rock walls around. But my wife and I have been visiting a couple of the English heritage sites up here. So our membership runs out in July, and we've wanted to add a few more because we live a long way away from here in Kent. So it's been a bit of a trek to get here. But we've looked at a number of them along Hadrian's Wall, a number of Roman forts and castles, and it's been really nice to detach from technology, even though I brought it with me so I could record something like this, but just to detach for the majority of the day and just be in nature. And I've found that I haven't thought about work once, apart from now, because I'm actively thinking about it whilst I've been here. So if you are struggling with this kind of thing, leave your phone at home, have a walk outside, somewhere green, trees, hike up a mountain if you have one close to you, and just reflect a little bit on where you're at, where you want to get to, and also where you've been. So only compare yourself to you, whether it's last month, last year, 10 years ago, perhaps, and really try and remove some of the noise that goes on in life. Your brain, your body, and your mind will thank you for it. Alex, is there anything else, or are we done?
No, just that sounds absolutely idyllic, and I'm very jealous. But no, nothing else.
Well, one day you can go on holiday as well. Yeah, and good job with the intro. I think I'm going to get you to do some more of them now that I know you're so proficient with them.
Deal. I don't mind doing that at all.
Lovely. Thank you all for listening. If you do want that copy of that book, do email us and just head back to episode 4 or 5. I've still got a couple of those books available. And if you'd like one, I'll post it to you free of charge. Thank you for listening, sincerely, for spending some time listening to Alex's chat about life and money. And we'll see you next time.
None of what we discuss on the show is to be considered financial or health advice, and we recommend you always do your own research or consult an independent financial advisor or a doctor when making your financial or health decisions.